Karate Kid movie franchise is one of the most popular and nostalgic franchises ever made. From a trilogy that remains in the hearts of every 80s child around the globe, to the soft reboot that didn't actually have any karate in it, but did have a banger theme song, to a sequel series that captivated audiences for the past 7 years, it's no shock that the studio continued the franchise with a new installment, which is Karate Kid Legends. Recently, I was able to see the movie early, and I wanted to dive into every single movie in the franchise and rank them. So, without further ado, let's kick our way into The Karate Kid might be the perfect example of what an 80s film is to me. A film with an absolute banger soundtrack, down-to-earth scenes, cheesy and sometimes corny dialogue, and an utter desire to deliver a true underdog story. And I can't complain. This movie is so good. I've seen this movie before. It's one of those films any child with parents born around this decade will show you to develop that eventual love for the 80s you'll get in your mid-20s. Don't worry. I've already been hit by that feeling. This film is very much a blueprint for a lot of underdog stories. It's a lower-scaled, younger Rocky about karate, pretty much. Daniel LaRusso is a fun protagonist in this film. It's funny seeing his catalyst after watching Cobra Kai over the past 7 years. You forget how much swagger and charisma this dude has as a youngin'.
Ma, come on with the baby brown.
Are you on something?
Yeah, I'm on Minute Maid. That's
why you
Jesus, every few scenes in this film I feel whiplash because I know someone who sounds just like him.
Coffee, absolutely coffee.
I like how the film doesn't try and downplay Daniel's struggles. He's a kid getting bullied, and instead of using it as a means of see something, say something, or sending Daniel down a path of violence and aggression, he meets a middle ground through someone like Mr. Miyagi. Now, pretty much every scene between Miyagi and Daniel is really well done, too perfect in my eyes. It's very easy to make someone wise and old as flawless and perfect, but the ability to make me care for Miyagi and see him as a person too was done quite well. Pat Morita shines as this character, and it shows. Moments of fragility and vulnerability is what stood out to me the most. The one scene he shares with Daniel regarding his wife's miscarriage and death while he was at war almost made me sob like a fucking baby.
Life, son, complication, but
Oh, what a scene. Moments where Miyagi shows Daniel the meaning of balance, or when he provides Daniel with gifts for his birthday, Miyagi and Daniel trying to focus and catch flies with chopsticks, just small things that bring you closer to each of them while watching work superbly. Now, the antagonist of this film, while becoming a whole new thing in the Big 2-5, you forget is simply just a rival dojo that's competing against Miyagi-Do. Like, Cobra Kai ain't that deep in this film, yet its mark on history is crucial to society, especially now with the show. Overall though, I like Johnny Lawrence. He's a fun bully. Is he super layered in this one? No. And while I absolutely adore the show for making me like Johnny more than Daniel, I can't sit here and say I side with Johnny in this film. Daniel showed up and got put through Navy SEAL Hell Week for being just the new guy. Little things like Johnny giving Daniel the trophy at the end though, awesome. Especially with the payoff later in the show. Kreese is a legend, and he's super corny and fun, and the performance is impeccable. I also enjoyed seeing Allie and Danny's relationship on screen. Honestly, a very heartwarming kind of thing that spawned between them. And for a high school relationship, I think the writing for it was done quite well. I thought the whole first date scene was cute and entertaining anyways. And I enjoyed Allie, and thought she was more than just a typical love interest kind of character. I thought there was a decent amount of layers to her that made me interested seeing her on screen. I find that the karate scenes in this movie hold up very well, all things considered. The first karate scene with Miyagi fighting the Cobra Kai kids on Halloween, iconic. Or the entirety of the All Valley scene was very fun to watch, especially the crane kick scene. I mean, legendary. Johnny should have easily won this, by the way, but homie was not locked in. But yeah, I guess it's easy to look back at this movie and remember the iconic parts and 80s themed soundtrack and forget the subtle things, but the intimate moments and non-karate parts really hit too. I just like how real this movie felt to me. And to reiterate, this soundtrack is a 10 out of 10. So with that being said, The Karate Kid is an S tier movie, especially for this franchise, because, well, I'm shocked that there's even this many sequels. The Karate Kid Part 2 is a very fun and endearing film for me. Honestly, kind of surprised at how much I enjoyed this film. I've seen this one a few times growing up, and it was fun going back and analyzing it a bit more for this video. I feel like many of the Karate Kid sequels get flack for being a worse version of the first, and I mean, I guess that's not wrong, but in my opinion, I think the second one has a lot of great moments that make it a worthy sequel. Now, I will admit, this movie is following almost the exact same formula for Daniel here, as his character doesn't have any crazy emotional journeys that you'd expect, or any sort of crazy progression. A lot of the film's differences come in the form of developing Miyagi's character, which I liked a lot. I think the idea of sending the two of them to Okinawa to settle some disputes between Miyagi and his former friend from his past was great. I'm a sucker for when films utilize culture and different environments to their advantage. A huge compliment I had for the Wolverine in my Deadpool and Wolverine video was this specific fact of how the environment played a crucial role in telling the story. And the Karate Kid 2 does that really well. There's so many parts of this movie that capture that different culture vibe, and it comes from the environment. Daniel and Kumiko's little dates around the village, Miyagi and his former flame Yuki showing their love again, had me in a manly state of butterflies. And personally, I think the crux of this story is very interesting. Seeing Miyagi, someone who's clearly been in love before, confess that one of his former loves was culturally arranged with his best friend, causing their friendship to be ruined and forcing him to leave his country is just, oof. That's a lot to take in, especially when you put him on such a pedestal from the previous movie. It adds a lot of humility to him. Makes sense why a grudge like that would stick, too. Man stole his girl and dipped without a trace, and then bringing him back to his homeland to see his sick father only reigniting the urge to fight to the death from his friend was interesting to see. It seems kind of cartoony in my reiteration, but it's pretty serious in the film, and the film doesn't shy away from that guilty but heartache-filled feeling Miyagi has for all of these things. I enjoyed Chosen. He's a bad guy with a little layers to him. Just wants to have honor but feels down because his is taken away by Daniel near the end. He just wants to please his superiors. Also, very sweet seeing friends reconnect after one almost dies. But regardless of that, the final fight is wild, way more brutal than the simple point scoring matches in the first one. Chosen was ready to murder. Wild sequence of events. A lot of memorable quotes in this one too. Again, like the first, there's just some real hard-hitting down-to-earth moments laced throughout this movie. Watching Daniel comfort Miyagi after his dad died, seeing Daniel help a little girl down a telephone wire during a storm, or watching Miyagi tell Yuki his love for her, it's just, hits you in your feels a little bit. All that wrapped into a film that feels distinct in its own way, but also feels nearly identical in practice to the first. In my opinion, I think this is an A-tier film. The soundtrack in this one too, you know, for a movie with a 15% on Rotten Tomatoes, I was expecting literal ass on my screen for an hour, and yet, what were these critics smoking? Because this movie is not nearly that bad. Now, I will say I think the trilogy gets progressively worse with each installment, but 15%? Thor Love and Thunder has 63. Crazy. Now, I have seen this movie in parts throughout my life, I just haven't had the opportunity to watch it in full, and I'm happy to say that I finally have done so. I think the movie's main goal of separating Miyagi and Daniel was an interesting path to take, and led to some great scenes of conflict and burden between both characters. Throughout this whole movie, Daniel is being bombarded by easily the most flamboyant and insane villains yet, with Barnes and Terry Silver. And Daniel's manipulated and forced to do something he doesn't want to, which is defend his All Valley title. You can really feel Daniel's anxiety and fear cause him to pull away from Miyagi, since Miyagi doesn't really want to burden himself with menial things like a trophy, while Barnes and Silver are literally tormenting Daniel, so he feels totally differently about it. I think this trilogy in general strives on the small things, the small moments that are shared between Miyagi and Daniel. For instance, Miyagi meditating and saying Daniel makes him a better person. That type of scene makes a grown man start shedding a few tears. However, I give props to this movie for including Terry in a way that at first is cartoonish as all hell, but then kind of locks in 45 minutes later into showing how manipulative he is to Daniel and how he slowly converts him into becoming a Cobra Kai member. I thought that whole sequence of Daniel learning the Cobra Kai ways and basically going through his symbiote arc was fun to watch. You forget that Daniel is like 18 years old. Everything he's being taught is being absorbed in different ways, and he's trying to balance who he wants to be. Seeing him realize the kind of man he wants to be at the end and overcoming fear was excellent. That little moment in the climax where Miyagi's like hyping up Daniel to focus and not let fear overrule his ability to win.
It's okay, lose to opponent. Must not lose to fear.
Chills. And to reiterate, I think Terry is a very fun antagonist. Dude is absolutely fucking crazy and cartoony, but very fun nonetheless.
Oh, I like that, Johnny. I'm gonna use it.
And Barnes is absolutely hysterical every time he's on screen.
Why are you being so stubborn? Don't do that.
I swear these three snorted cocaine before shooting their scenes together. Now, Kreese is in this movie, but like for 10 whole minutes. Terry sends him on a vacation and then he's gone until the final act, which I thought was hilarious. If you like Kreese, you'll love him in this film. He's great. Now, there is a new girl in this movie, because of course there is. Daniel needs to fucking riz. And her name is Jessica. I do give props to the film for not making her another love interest though, but just a friend for Daniel.
That's rough, buddy.
Thought she was a pretty decent character, felt like she has some layers to her too. I feel like this trilogy does a good job with Daniel's friend / love interest characters. They don't really feel one-dimensional. They have their own specific kind of qualities to them, which I think is pretty cool. Now, this movie does have some adventurous parts to it, like when Daniel and Jessica straight up Uncharted-like climb down a mountain for a bonsai tree before almost being murdered by Barnes. In terms of karate, this movie is less focused on it for a while, comparatively speaking to the first two. It isn't until later on where it's more active in showing it. I thought the fights and training were fine. The final fight between Barnes and Daniel was kind of anticlimactic, especially if you compare it to the first one, until the one part at the end that I mentioned before. I mean, Daniel just gets his ass beat the whole time until that point anyway. But yeah, I guess in terms of criticisms I have with the film, I think it's kind of quote-unquote boring. Since there is no karate for most of it, it can come at an issue with pacing if you aren't into the Miyagi and Daniel situation. I was, so it didn't really bore me. I don't think this movie is nearly as bad as some of these critics were saying, man. Like, what the hell? I'm still flabbergasted that it has such a low scoring rating on Rotten Tomatoes. It's not nearly that bad. In my opinion, I'd go B tier for this movie. I honestly think it's quite enjoyable. Well, now I understand why this movie was totally forgotten about in Cobra Kai. This Letterboxd review sums up my thoughts on this movie pretty well, honestly. I had never known there was a fourth Karate Kid with Mr. Miyagi until about a week ago, when I decided I was gonna make this video. Then color me surprised to find out Hilary Swank of $1 Million Baby fame is in this, and Walton Goggins? Say so! There's about 3 whole great scenes in this movie, and that's pretty much it.
Are you sure?
Pretty sure. Pat Morita carries this film on his back, man. Whew. I don't really know what the point of this movie is, to be honest. The plot of this movie revolves around a girl named Julia, played by Hilary Swank. And her parents are dead. And she'll let you know about that because in the first 5 minutes, she says that straight up to her aunt. And you know what her aunt does about this? She goes on vacation and forces the friend of her dead husband to watch over Julia. Is it really that easy to get rid of white girls? Because of this, she gets taught some karate lessons, and her perspective on life changes due to his influence. Now, I think the ideas here could have been really great to see. I mean, the change from a boy main lead to a girl main lead alone is enough to inspire some cool ideas. I mean, how you treat either one of those is kind of different, and the movie does touch on this a little bit, which I appreciated for that fact. But damn, man, this movie high-key blows. Julie is totally watered down for someone who lost their parents. Sure, she's angry, but it felt more like an act than genuine sources of rage with how scenes present her. I think the idea of an already established karate user is cool, so I don't know why they didn't lean on that more. She should have been training for something to overcome her inner struggles. Maybe not a karate tournament, but more than whatever the hell else this ending is. The first hour of the movie makes Miyagi feel like a caricature of his own character from before. He seemed a bit too goofy and weird. It wasn't until he starts helping Julie get ready for the school dance where things started to feel normal again. Other side characters are so boring and wooden. There's no depth to them. The villains in this movie are psychopaths. Literally. These grown-ass 200+ pound men are trying to beat the shit out of a 115 pound girl. At some point, I just sat there like, what am I watching? The final fight forces one of the side characters named Eric to fight one of the literal attempted murderers in a back alley brawl, where Julie then uses the power of God to kick the shit out of this guy, and then Miyagi beats another insane commando leader that I don't remember his name. Also, a car gets blown up. What is this movie? How did the franchise end up here? Like I said, there's interesting ideas here, but man, is it not properly thought out. Like, there's sequences that I truly loved. One of the ideas I really liked was how much he treats Julie like a daughter, instilling these kind of proper lessons into her like Daniel There's this moment throughout the movie where Julie is taking care of this hawk, and Mr. Miyagi tells Julie that she needs to let it go, and that even though it has a broken wing, it needs to fly on its own, and she can't decide for it. And I like that a lot. It was a cool lesson, and I thought if it delved deeper into the more profound lessons like this, the movie could have been so much better. Another amazing scene was Miyagi teaching Julie how to dance. He used a lesson of karate and turned it into a small lesson about just doing the waltz. Like, it was just so simple but so cool. I really wished the girl older father figure dynamic was used way more, because the first half of this movie is just like wild Karate Kid fantasies thrown into a script. At least there's monks dancing though. That shit got me turned. And then the one moment he sees her all dressed up for the dance and started calling her beautiful, my ass was a puddle. This one scene almost made me think the movie I was watching was an actual ass. Especially because he was supposed to have a child back in the first one. This whole fatherly figure stuff works perfectly for Miyagi's character. I just wish Julie had a proper reason to train against a proper antagonist that was fleshed out way more and had an emotional arc that's more developed. Because again, her losing her parents and having to deal with the grief is an interesting idea, but her just screaming over and over again in the beginning was super annoying, and then for the final battle to just be this one kind of random back alley brawl just feels like a waste of time. In no world am I going to be putting this one on again. It's a D tier movie. If Cobra Kai doesn't even reference you, that's how you know you've reached rock bottom.
Is stronger than me, and his arms a little bit longer than me, but he ain't on a JB song with me.
The Karate Kid reboot. Sorry, The Kung Fu Kid is a movie starring Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith.
God, like, can we talk about, like, the political and economic state of the world right now?
This movie rocks.
Shot to the heart!
I love it so much. I have a lot of great childhood memories of seeing this movie in theaters with my family, and also, Never Say Never was blasted in the Delicious household all the time. But going back to rewatch it after all the other ones really made me appreciate this more. Before it was canon to the Karate Kid universe, this just stood on its own as a reboot, and I think it does everything a proper reboot should do. Keep the structure and roots of what the original had, but accent it with subtle changes to make it feel like its own product. And I'd say this movie 1000% feels like its own thing compared to the first one. Obviously, it being about Kung Fu and being called Karate Kid is so stupid. Yes, I'll admit that. However, I raise you Jackie Chan beating the shit out of children. Enough said. I love how this film takes place in China. Taking a note from the Karate Kid 2, using that difference in environment helps elevate Dre's feelings of loneliness and being an outcast. All of the streets feel worn in too. It just has so much of a character in of itself. The whole world feels like it breathes Kung Fu, which brought so much more of an investment into the movie for me. Seeing Dre travel through the streets, go to their festivals, or looking at all the kids training in the field was just a sight to see. And all of those training sequences taking place at different Chinese landmarks. The Great Wall of China? That's just unreal aura right there. This movie is much longer than the original, but honestly, I prefer it. I felt like scenes got to breathe, and Dre's danger was built up way more. Dre gets his ass beat in the first scene. Like, this 12-year-old Chinese kid has more mythical aura behind him than most modern villains. At some point, I was thinking this kid might be racist the way he manhandled Jaden Smith. Scenes with Han and Dre were done really well too. They recapture what worked with Daniel and Miyagi due to Jaden Smith and the incredible Jackie Chan's genuine energy. Most scenes flow very smooth. Their chemistry is rock solid. I just enjoyed seeing them bounce off of each other, but also pick each other up when they were down. Han breaking down to Dre in his car that got his family killed was brutal. Jackie Chan in general is probably the only person in the world who could recapture Morita's Miyagi energy, and he did it flawlessly. Supporting characters were earnest here. I loved Dre's mom. Just pure sassy black queen energy. Also, Mei is the best written love interest for a Karate Kid movie. I mean, she has her own motivations, struggles, and interest in Dre and his successes. Rarely do we get a character arc for a supporting love interest in any of these films, so hell yeah, brother. Now, the kung fu scenes in this, whew, they're so goddamn cool. These action scenes, yes, because they're action scenes, are filmed so fluidly and with so much movement, it's crazy. There's so much energy and movement in all of these fight sequences, it's so entertaining to watch. The final Kung Fu tournament bodies the original in terms of movement. These kids are scrapping. The Mr. Han opening fight is actually insane to watch. I feel like I'm watching child abuse. He uses the kids to fight each other. If I was one of these kids getting bitch slapped by my friend from a 50-year-old man, I'd pack my bags and leave the country. Ain't no way I'm recovering from that. But yeah, it's so fascinating how a movie about children learning kung fu is filmed like a modern action movie. This is the blueprint for real. It's also a beautifully shot movie too. So many of the locations look incredible. Also, training for this tournament got me so hyped. I was screaming at my TV. A one-legged backflip kick to the face is crazy, by the way. How does one even do this? The acting's incredible, the fighting's incredible. You know what? Screw it. S-tier movie. Talk with a wall. In terms of Karate Kid franchise movies, it's so good and amplifies an already told story by adding new elements to make it its own thing. It does what any reboot should do, and I love it. Now, I did a full ranking of all the Cobra Kai seasons, so I'm not going to be breaking down the whole show here, as I've already done so in that video. But all I'll say is that as a collective whole, the show elevates the original series so much by adding immense character development to many of the original characters. And it's not only limited to the original characters, but also it makes all of the new legacy characters so good. They aren't irritating, they're not corny or stupid as hell. The show is insanely aware at being cheesy, over the top, but it's also very earnest. The first 2 seasons are literal perfection in my eyes, same as the final 5 episodes of the series. The rest is good to great with no real terrible season. In terms of the tier list, I'd happily put it in S tier too. If you haven't seen the show yet, Johnny Lawrence literally becomes the best Karate Kid universe character ever made because of it. It's the best around. See what I did there? So after 7 seasons of what was considerably pretty amazing television, we finally reached the latest installment in this long-running franchise. And I know what you're thinking. How does it live up? Well, I actually enjoyed it a lot. For what it's worth, it has its problems, and a lot of reviewers on YouTube are already saying how much they either don't like this movie or despise it. I'm not one of them. I was thoroughly entertained the entire time for what this movie is. The new Karate Kid is Lee, a student of Mr. Han's now popular Kung Fu dojo in Beijing. However, he's forced to move to New York City with his mom to get away from violence? Does she know what New York City is like? I like the idea of an already established kid learning karate. It's the one thing I actually enjoyed about Julie's Karate Kid movie. It's something the franchise kind of needs, especially in a better film. However, I do think the whole film feels like 2 separate movie ideas crammed into one. The first idea, which I actually liked a lot, was Lee teaching his next door neighbor's dad how to use Kung Fu to his advantage in boxing. This leads to not only cool uses of a kid teaching an adult this time, but also fun training sequences and building intimate scenes between supporting characters like Mia, the boxer's daughter, and Lee's love interest, and the boxing dad, Victor. Had this idea been spread and stretched out over a 90-minute runtime, I would have loved this movie considerably more. This part of the film honestly reminded me a lot of Avatar: The Last Airbender when Zuko's like learning other bending techniques so he can become a better firebender. I was like, yo, this is really cool. Then the rest of the movie happened. This movie is one of those rare cases where I think even more time was needed to unpack these plot points, because this movie is only 90 minutes long, and clearly both of these ideas were cut down considerably to force them into one movie. However, I like seeing Lee get used to the city, interact with other citygoers, and use his own teachings of Kung Fu to help someone else. I live literally like 40 minutes away from New York City, so I just like seeing it in film. Plus, in the film, it's told to us that his brother was killed because he froze up and couldn't save him. 1, I wish this was the cold open to the movie and not just told to us in a flashback. And 2, how cool would it have been to see him overcome this grief by not sitting around and using his tools to help someone defend themselves in a way like boxing? Plus, it would have made more sense for Mr. Han to show up and help and give him more time to feel included in the movie. There's also this huge mafia-esque kind of vibe going on in the first half of the film that is like nearly forgotten about entirely after minute 50, because halfway through the movie, this whole dope-ass plot is forgotten about and Lee needs to enter a karate tournament to pay for Victor's boxing medical bills, essentially. Now, I ain't gonna sit here and say I hate what happens next, because I truly didn't. But do I think Ralph Macchio at all needed to be in this movie? Absolutely not. I don't even know why Lee needed to learn karate in this film at all, because even the characters in the film barely explain why he does. It's simply just a cash grab, marketing scheme, pretty much. I mean, look at all the trailers. They throw Ralph Macchio in every single trailer, and he's barely in the movie. But, all that being said, I still thought it was cool seeing him, and he was fun regardless. Also, throughout this whole movie, Lee's mother is totally against him fighting, and then randomly midway through the movie, she's just accepting of him fighting in this tournament. Now, there is like a small reason that changes her mind, but it's like so last minute of a emotional change that like totally caught me off guard. I really wish they kind of dived into her character more because, and I think this goes for all of the Karate Kid movies, I don't think any of the parental figures have much of a character to them. This is something that could have really enhanced the movie. But the film still kept me entertained. At the end of the day, my brain is rot and all I see is cool action sequences and I'm thrilled. Would I have preferred a different route for this movie? Absolutely. But it's also easy to sit here and wish for other things when you don't like something. But considering I actually enjoyed the rest of the movie still, I'll talk about some things I enjoyed. I thought the action scenes in this movie were top tier. In a similar vein to the 2010 one, there's so much energy and movement, it's nuts. Ben Wang, the actor for Lee, is incredibly likable and fun to watch on screen. Plus, he did most of his own stunts. That is a huge W. Also, like I mentioned before, I enjoyed the supporting characters. I thought they were helpful and interesting for Lee in the film, especially Victor, who I wish was the main supporting character. Although given no depth or anything new really, Han and Daniel were fun to watch on screen together. I also enjoyed the New York City atmosphere and thought it added some new character to the film. And of course, the final tournament section was cool. I mean, the fights were so energetic and entertaining. It's just a shame though, because I didn't really care for the bad guy at all. He's barely in the film and has no character to him whatsoever. Like I said though, this film has two interesting ideas that work against each other when trying to put them together, essentially. Although I found this movie very enjoyable and fun, and worth rewatching, this movie could have been excellent. Instead, it's good, but it feels like it could have been a subplot on a Cobra Kai season. Throwing this on the tier list, I'm going high B tier. The Johnny Lawrence cameo at the end was peak though. I love Johnny Lawrence. In the end, the Karate Kid franchise is something I find super interesting because most of the sequels only capture a fraction of what the original started until you get to Cobra Kai, because that TV show lives and succeeds at elevating the original films. But overall, the franchise is definitely a mixed kind of bag. From my personal perspective, there's only one truly bad movie in this franchise. The rest have their great moments to just being downright, like, amazing. At least to me anyways. But who am I? Just some YouTuber? I wonder where it's all gonna go now that Cobra Kai's ended and this Legends movie utilizes franchise vets to market itself, because I'd really enjoy a Ben Wang-led trilogy if they let him cook, but the Legends marketing has barely made it about him and more about Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan, even though they're barely in the first half of the movie. It's interesting for sure. We'll see where it goes. Here's my final ranking of all the Karate Kid films as well as Cobra Kai, and here's my ranking for all of the villains of this entire franchise, because some are definitely better than others. Do you agree? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're down there, hit that like and subscribe button. YouTube likes when you do that because it'll push this video out to more people like you who enjoy these kinds of videos. Also, turn on that notification bell so you're notified whenever I post a new video, and as always, I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.